All right, good morning. It's good to see you. Welcome to My Doctor. My name is Winnie Lubembe, and as always, it's a pleasure to have you on board because we try as much as possible, to give you all the information you need to have as far as health is concerned so that it helps you make informed health choices. All right, and today's show is no different. Our focus is on childhood trauma into adulthood, and this is a conversation that we had started last week, and we focused more on what is trauma, first of all, because most of the time, sometimes people go through, incidences, experiences in life, and especially when they were younger, that affects them even into adulthood. But most of the time, we do not really understand why they're not able to cope with the same. We tend to be so judgmental, and especially to people who are suffering from the same, and that is as far as trauma is concerned. So without giving so much away, just in case you've missed last week's episode, we'll take a look at this, and then we'll be right back with more. Just help us understand more about what trauma is all about.
Great. Mm-hmm. So trauma is any unnatural event that is experienced or witnessed in childhood.
All right.
And childhood, of course, we're talking about 13 years and below.
Yeah.
But we do know that people become adults, quote unquote, when they're 18. But psychologically speaking, interesting to note is that the brain fully develops for women when they're age 23 and for men when they're age 25.
Okay.
That is when the prefrontal cortex is fully developed, and it helps to regulate emotions, make decisions, self-control. So those are the kind of ages that we are looking at.
Okay.
Trauma has to deal with sudden.
Yeah.
That's why it's an unnatural life occurrence.
Okay.
Type 2, on the other hand, is a daily unnatural occurrence.
All right. Okay.
Unnatural.
Okay.
It's not, doesn't happen within what we know as normal.
Yeah. A case of death.
Yes.
That's natural.
Yes.
But you said trauma is like a natural occurrence, right? Where do they fall into?
Death is indeed natural.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's traumatic is that it's a rip-off. But at the back of our minds, we kind of know that death somewhat exists.
Yeah.
It's only that when it happens to us, it becomes very, very traumatic, and it's ripped off.
Yeah.
Let's look at type 2, what happens. Different kind of traumas or traumatic experiences in type 2. Remember, it's an occurrence. It's an everyday occurrence. So sexual abuse, as mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
The worst thing about it is that the child learns a reward from the trauma. So someone is abusing them. After abusing them, gives them a sweet.
Yeah.
So the child learns to be rewarded.
You have to. This is sad.
It
man.
is.
This is sad. Yeah.
It's really, really sad, and it's heartbreaking.
All right, welcome back. Now that you have a slightly better understanding about what we talked about last week, we continue with the same. And of course, today we want to focus more on childhood, or not childhood trauma, but trauma, and of course, in adults. And that is after probably someone went through it when they were younger, and it has affected them in their adulthood. So you know the drill by now. If you have any question, feel free to send us an SMS on 40920. We look forward to hear from you. If you've gone through any form of trauma and you are an adult probably watching us right now, and it has affected or impacted your life in one way or the other, how about you share your story with us on our SMS line 40920? Or if you're dealing with it and you do not know what to do, where to seek help, again, feel free to engage with us, and of course we will forward all the details to our guest, and she'll try as much as possible and get in touch with all of you as far as trauma is concerned. And let's meet her. Good morning. You look so lovely, as always. Thank you very much, for making time for us again to just come and talk about trauma. Because like we said last week, it was such a heavy topic.
It was.
To go through and just to understand how things that happen in our lives can impact us. And most of the time it's to the negative, which affects our productivity and just life in general. Yeah. All right, so before we get into the discussion, could you just say hi, remind the people who you are, what you do, and just in case someone is tuning in today for the first time and they want to know, what you do.
Good morning. My name is Rehema Nyambura. I am a counseling psychologist, and I'm glad to be here to offer information that hopefully will be helpful.
Yeah. All right. Let's just jump into it, and would want to understand mostly what happens to the brain.
Yes.
Because again, like I said, I think most of the time, we as a people, and I think it's just human. It's so easy for us to judge someone based on how they behave without necessarily wanting to understand what's probably, or what their story is. Why are they behaving the way they do? As we're just like, this one is a weirdo. Let's stay away from this person, not knowing that this person could be dying inside. All right. So what happens really to the brain, especially when one goes through a traumatic experience? And the question that I asked last week, and I think it will be nice to even go through today, is then if that is the case, because people would say, but we all go through things in life, you know. Why is it that then some people are able to handle it and probably manage and learn to not allow it to take over their lives, and there's some people who really remain affected by this scene? So let's just start with what happens to the brain.
Okay, so trauma affects the brain in totality. But 4 main areas that are affected by trauma, and this is research that has shown that, is something called the limbic system. So it's quite diverse. I won't go into the details because ideally what we want to do is to just offer information for understanding purposes. I want to mention the 4 parts that trauma affects the brain. So the first one is the amygdala. As we mentioned earlier on, the amygdala is a small part in the brain. It's adjacent to the next part which I'm going to talk about. It's called the hippocampus. So what the amygdala does is to regulate your responses to the environment. Okay? Then the other part is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is responsible for the long-term memory. So you see, you react, the way you've reacted, that is stored in your brain. The third part is the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is known as the function for executive functioning, how we react. And executive functioning really has everything to do with how self-controlled we are, the ability to achieve our goals, the ability to self-motivate. So that's the executive function. And that's the primary role of the prefrontal cortex. And mainly, this is encompassed in reasoning as well. And
decision-making as well?
Decision-making, Then the fourth part is the brainstem. And so the brainstem is responsible for your breathing, heart rate, conscious. It's conscious when you're awake, and just generally transportation of information, sleeping, and all this you can see are emotion-based functions.
Because now I'm thinking, when you say that, I'm thinking, okay, because now we've done depression and other mental health conditions, and I'm thinking, they always say this person either has trouble sleeping, or again, in terms of decision making, most of the time not make the best, or like there's some behaviors that I get. So now somewhat makes sense.
That's good.
of what exactly happens to the brain. All right. So these 4 main parts, are they affected immediately, and all of them, like the 4 of them at the same time, or are there parts that are probably more affected as compared to the others? Does that make sense?
Yes. So let's go back to, although today we are talking about childhood trauma manifestation in adulthood. Let's go back to how this is learned in childhood to be affected, for it to manifest in adulthood. So, of course, when you're young, you're learning, and your brain is like a sponge. It's a plain slate, tabula rasa. So you learn, and what you learn is absorbed. So all these 4 functions, they learn how to work within a specific environment because of environmental triggers. So those are not the only four parts of the brain that are affected by trauma, but these are the ones that I would say are overladen by the trauma. Because as you spoke last time, there are 2 hormones that are pumped into your body. Cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and adrenaline, what you need to do during a certain situation or an environment that is threatening. Now, if you have cortisol, your amygdala is always on overdrive. Same to your hippocampus, because it has to recall memory. Same to your midbrain, because it's the one which is allowing you to stay alert.
Yeah.
And same to your prefrontal cortex. It's the one that's telling you this is how you're going to act or control yourself.
Do this,
Possibly
yeah.
you're not able to control yourself, you're impulsive. So those are the four main that you see working, but the entire brain is still working.
It's still working.
Yeah.
All right then. And then in terms of manifestation from the same, because like we said last, in terms of the different types of trauma, and especially the ones that are sudden, there's some people who start showing some of the signs early enough, and others it might take a bit of time before you start, you start noticing some of those things. Again, that is controlled by the brain and the four main ones, or the entire brain just decides? The entire brain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so in terms of some people who are able to then show the signs immediately, what does that say?
Are we talking in adulthood?
No, still in children when they're still experiencing the same, and then it will manifest probably like later on whether they have sought intervention or not.
All of us will react in a certain way when we're in a traumatic situation.
True.
The interesting thing is that because of these hormones that are pumped into your body, your five senses are elevated.
Okay.
That's why if someone has been in an accident before, they'll tell you they can smell blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and someone can tell you, I saw 1, 2, 3. People even say time stood still.
Yeah.
You know, they can recount how within seconds it happened, because our senses, all our five senses are heightened during a traumatic situation.
Yeah.
So during that absorption of that information, of course, the brain is trying to process, to protect you, to protect itself. And interestingly enough, if you have adrenaline in your body, you don't bleed that much if you're in a traumatic experience.
Yeah. Or even feel pain, right?
Or even feel pain.
Because there's some people who say, I did not even know I was hurt until someone said, hey, there's a lot of blood here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. And the reason why I asked that is because, and I'm pretty sure you've encountered this, where people say, and especially for a child, they say they just went numb. You know, they didn't cry, didn't move, didn't express how they, like they just...
Shut out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
So for children, in fact, there's diagnosis, or rather, diagnosis on something called selective mutism. So if a child has been in a traumatic experience and you reintroduce that traumatic experience to them without solving that trauma, they can become, they become selective, they become mute. Yeah. And it's selective, because when you take them out of that traumatic experience, they're able to communicate, they talk. Yeah. But if you put them back into that environment that was traumatic, they become mute. But immediately, for children, as I had shared earlier, you can tell from their behavior. Yeah. They don't know how to hide.
How to hide it, that's true.
So
that's
one
true.
moment a child is fine, vibrant, talking, laughing. The next moment, they are very quiet and withdrawn. The other thing that we check as psychologists, and this is for school-going children, has a child started bedwetting? They stopped. They weren't, they stopped, and now they have started again, all of a sudden, out of the blues. That could be an issue of trauma. Yeah. And there are other behaviors or symptoms that are exuded. Children don't say, I'm stressed. They will tell you, I have a stomachache. Yeah. That manifests a lot, and they'll tell you it's the upper stomach. That manifests a lot. Yeah. Lack of sleep. A child should never be able to not sleep. Yeah. Lack of sleep. Appetite, under or above. Are they overeating? And not during this COVID time, because this, we know during this COVID time the children have been overeating. During this time. Just on a normal time. They've stopped eating as they used to eat, and now they are overeating. So that's how we would be able to tell. Easily tell. Yeah, that a child is either going through the trauma, because remember there's type 1 and type 2.
Type 2, yes.
Or have gone through a trauma.
Okay. Yeah. All right then. And then for adults, and like we said, with intervention, some are able to, I mean, they might not forget clearly, and even they know their triggers, and they're somewhat able to control it. But then again, sometimes this manifests in adulthood. So in adults, what are we looking at as far as, because now how do we know that this person went through, trauma? Because like I said, most of the time we don't really care much to know what is this person's story, why are they behaving this way. It's easier, to judge and say, stay away from me.
Yeah.
I do not want your energies. You're not a vibe,
Yeah.
Yeah. So really in adults, what are some of the things that people should know or even be on the lookout for, such that when they notice someone is behaving this way or doing this or doing that, then they know there's a problem and we need to find help for this person.
For this person.
Yeah.
So it's very broad, but
Okay.
let me try and summarize it.
All right.
Patterns, and these are observable patterns in their behavior, because the good thing we say is behavior is observable.
Oh, yeah.
So one, toxic relationships. When someone jumps from one toxic relationship to
the
another,
other.
to
Yeah.
another. And when you question them, they're just like, even me, I don't
I
understand.
don't know. Yeah. I just find myself
I draw this kind
in
of
this.
people.
Yeah.
In,
Oh, yeah,
within
they
my
say that a
circle.
lot, yeah.
I draw this kind of people within my circle. So that's one.
Yeah.
The other one is on sustainability of relationships.
Yeah.
Someone who is unable, quote unquote, to keep relationships constantly going.
Okay.
The other one, of course, is in destructive behaviors. Alcohol, excessive alcohol, drug abuse. The other one, of course, is now into the entire space of the mental health, depression, anxiety. But there's one that I really, really want to talk about, and that is communication.
Okay.
Just an inability to communicate what you actually perceive as your truth.
Okay.
You're very afraid of communicating your point of view.
Okay. Okay.
Or you keep quiet. You're like, I don't want to destabilize the waters.
Yeah.
I don't want to cause conflict. That's another one, conflict avoidance, because this is life.
Okay.
We are going to go into conflict.
Yeah, conflict, yeah.
But communication is a key one, because you'll hear people say, oh, they're just quiet.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just shy. But if you dig deeper, you find that this person has really great insights and they're intelligent. So you're wondering, why don't they want to communicate?
Yeah.
But so that, I would say, is the presenting, what we see.
Yeah. Okay.
Behind there is a lot of things. Poor self-perception, an unhealthy self-esteem, a tremendous amount of fear of the unknown. You're just afraid. Self-sabotaging patterns. You want to get better, but you just cannot seem to get better.
Yeah.
And this is in a cyclical pattern. And then the other one is something we call codependence, where you depend on someone for negativity. So, for example, I'm in a relationship because this person, I want to say this very, very carefully. This person makes me feel whole again. And what I give to that other person is a negative. See, no one should ever make you feel whole again.
That's
you already
true. You're whole
on your own. So, that line of the romantic line that people say, oh, you complete me.
Yeah.
It's a little bit scary. No human being
You're
can.
supposed to compliment,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Not complete.
Yes,
okay.
not complete.
Okay.
So, in a unique relationship, there's something called foodism, where someone who's 300 or 400 kgs is dating another person. So the person who's 300, 400 kgs gets their fulfillment from being accepted as they are, quote unquote, and that's an unhealthy state. And the person they're dating gets a high on feeding them. So you see they're feeding. It's
like this person feels good when they're attending to your needs, but then again, it's negative, it's not positive.
They feel powerful.
Yes.
They feel needed. Yeah.
Okay.
You can see how complex
it is. It is. And then when you say this, and I'm thinking, but wait, we have so many people who have gone through life with all this that you're talking about. And I'm thinking, so does it always mean that this person had gone through trauma of some sort before? Because then, low self-esteem, negative self-image, fear, it's okay, I don't know. It's just like, does it mean that this person then must have had to go through? Because sometimes, life happens. It might not be that way in their childhood.
Yeah.
But when they are adults, probably they go to a point where, again, that aspect of probably you feel nobody cares about you, nobody cares about what you have to say and all those things. And you just decide, you know what, I can as well just keep all these ideas and opinions and all those things to myself, because even if I say it, nobody would care to listen, you know?
And that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's not even a truth.
Okay.
So the fact that you can say, even if I say it, nobody will care to listen.
Yeah.
So ideally, you're not saying it because it's the objective truth.
Yeah.
You're saying it for acceptance.
Okay.
Or for affirmation. There is, I'm going to say it because this is what that needs to be said.
Yeah.
So at the back of my mind, I'm like, I know people will reject what I'm saying.
But I'm just going to say it anyway.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Versus, I'd rather not say it.
Yeah.
In case I disrupt the waters.
Okay.
And this other category, you go home and you'll be like, I should have said something.
Yeah.
So you start beating yourself down and down again. And that causes a poor self-image, an unhealthy self-esteem. So you can see how it's a cyclical pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, is personality a factor here? Because again, there's some people who are generally just quiet, chill, you know, like the introverted mostly, and they won't say much. You know them, they'll just be in their space, do what they love, and just do things that makes them happy without necessarily having to probably like let everyone around them know, as compared to the extroverted who's like out and about, life is good, you know, and even when they're not okay, they'll just say, I am not okay. So is personality a factor in terms of then exhibiting some of the symptoms?
So let's go back to how personalities are formed,
Yes.
which I feel like this is a whole nother topic.
On its own.
On
All
its
right.
own.
Yeah.
Personality, age-old debate, nature.
Nature, yes.
Well, nowadays, even neuroscientists are saying that actually nature contributes to 80%. Nurture is the 20%. I mean, there's still a lot of debate on
on
that.
the same, yeah.
So let's even say it's 20. The 80 substitutes to who you are.
Yeah.
And who you are is a sum total of your environment, your experiences, the lessons that you've learned. So just to answer your question, is personality a factor?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
But it's not introverts are more prone to X or extroverts are more prone to X, because all of us go through that 80%.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at trauma in adulthood, that is also another factor that we consider.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even if someone is an introvert, it's so marvelous how the brain works.
Yeah.
Even if someone is an introvert and they are leaders, you can see some characteristics of extrovertionness when they are leading the team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and inversely as well. If someone is an extrovert, you can see the introvertness when they are part of a team. So those are some of the things that we look at.
Yeah.
But again, it's not an umbrella statement. Trauma affects all of us.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah.
So we'll check on things like what is your perception? Why do you actually think this trauma originated from your childhood? What happened in your childhood that you would be able to either keep quiet or become inclusive? So all these are things that we check during trauma to just ascertain that the trauma is in adulthood.
Yeah. Okay. Now, are there some people, because now I'm thinking, okay, fine, because we see a lot of those people who, you know, and present with the same symptoms, but then when you talk to them and ask, again, if probably they've gone through something that is traumatic or, you know, they tell you, no, you know, like I can't remember, or I just know this is just me, and probably got to a point in life where I decided to just, you know. So I'm like, okay. So then it's because then it becomes difficult, you know, to even try to help this person to find help, because this person is like, me, I'm okay, you know, everything is okay. I'm just, or some of them just grow up knowing that this is normal to feel this way or to, you know, behave this way because, again, I just want to be me and do the things that I love. So to them, it's normal, you know? And when you try ask them out, they'll be like, no, but I don't see anything wrong with me,
Yeah.
you know?
So that's the paradox also of
Yeah.
intervention and treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have found is we know.
Okay.
You,
As people,
yeah,
adults, we know. All right.
you sit back and you take audit and you're like, I should have acted better.
Yeah.
When the same opportunity or a recurring opportunity comes, you act in that manner that you're saying you should not have acted
Yeah.
in, then those are questions.
Okay.
Because if you remember what we talked about last time, there's a reward, there's a traumatic experience. So for example, neglect. So you've been neglected. You feel bad that you've been neglected,
Yeah.
but there's a reward. At least I'm alone, so I can always count on myself. But yet there's a desire for someone to be there for you.
Yeah.
So when someone comes, you want them to be there for you, but there's that reward and there's that quote unquote high of wanting to be by yourself. But you don't want to be by yourself.
Yeah.
You get it.
It becomes complicated.
It becomes like a strain,
Yeah.
an incongruency there in between. So it's upon us to take stock and say, I think I went through trauma and this is how I think trauma manifested in my life, because I cannot seem to break off from toxic relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Or I cannot seem to have a healthy perception of myself. Or I have these recurring negative thoughts about myself. Or this is how I communicate. And I don't think it's right because I have seen 1, 2, 3 communicating in certain ways.
Yeah.
It's for us to take stock.
Okay.
But the other thing that we can do as adult is, how do you relate to your children?
Okay.
Because normally we say, we parent how we were parented.
Oh, yeah.
Until it gets to a point where you say, there must have been something wrong with
Yeah.
how I was parented. I don't think it's working.
I want to do it differently.
And I think that is what is happening in this generation.
Yeah.
Because, of course, kids are changing. We don't know. So we become very passive parents, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is there a healthy relationship between you and your child? Can your child come to you?
Yeah.
If you feel like your child perceives you as being harsh, why?
Why?
Is that what you want?
Okay.
And you'll find that even you in your mind, the perception of a mother or a father is that of your mother or a father.
They were too harsh. It's my way or the highway. There's no debate.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah.
Okay. All
and
right.
we don't want to force that everyone has gone through trauma.
No.
There are certainly people who have not gone through trauma, but majority of us have gone through trauma.
Yeah.
And we don't know that this is, if you don't know that there's a problem, that problem will always recur.
Will always recur. All right, let's take a very short break so that we're able to digest, because it's a lot and I have still have so many questions.
Yeah.
So let's take a break, and then when we come back, I'd want to know, are there people probably who've gone through traumatic experiences, they've forgotten? Remember what we talked about last week, repressive memory. So are there people who've gone through traumatic experience and then forgotten about it, or they do not even want to go back, so they just pretend that, me, I've never gone through any form of trauma, I am okay? And is it difficult to find help for this person who says, well, yeah, I'm good, life is good? All right, so we're taking a very short break. Stay with us. When we come back, more on childhood trauma and how it manifests into adulthood. You do not want to miss that part of the discussion. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Glad you're still with us. This is My Doctor, and our focus today is on childhood trauma and how it manifests into adulthood. Great insights we're getting today from Rehema Nyambura, who is a counseling psychologist. Now, here's the thing. On that aspect of trauma, okay, there's so many things that Rehema is saying, and I'm thinking, wait, but sometimes you think it's normal, but really it's not. And it's difficult sometimes to try and find help for this person, especially who behaved the way from the symptoms that we've talked about. And we're like, okay, is this normal? Where do we draw the line? Could it be that they've gone through traumatic experience? Could it not? You know, like there's just a lot surrounding the same. And Rehema, so in terms of then, because like I said, there's some people who say, but me, I'm okay. Like there's nothing wrong. I am, if anything, I think you're the one who has a problem. Because now why do you always see that I have a problem, yet me see I do not have any problem? So could it be that there's some people who've gone through a traumatic experience and just forgotten about it,
Yeah.
you know?
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for this person, then it becomes difficult for them to find help, right? Because then they're thinking, so why do you want me to seek help and yet there's nothing wrong with me?
You know, even if what we are calling quote unquote forgetting,
Yeah.
these are repressed
Uh-huh.
memories.
Uh-huh.
So difference between repressed and suppressed.
Yeah.
Repressed is completely hidden in the unconscious,
Yeah.
almost forgotten, quote unquote, but they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Suppressed is you actually push down these memories.
Mm-hmm.
You-
Intentionally.
Intentionally. You have
Okay.
a sense that something wrong happened, but you're
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
Even though someone is saying they're okay and they're right that they would be okay, I would ask the question, when you're within a threatening environment, how do you respond?
Mm-hmm.
Is it rationally objective? Are you able to communicate well?
Yeah.
Are you able to articulate what you're thinking? Are you able to feel what you're thinking? Or is your natural response to shut out? So those are some of the things that I would be asking someone.
Yeah.
Without forcing them that you went
You
through
went
trauma,
through,
so you must
yes,
no. Yeah.
Okay, then, so let's talk about diagnosis then. What happens and how, and especially for those ones who either suppress,
Yeah.
the traumatic event experience, how then do you come to a conclusion that, yes, this person went through trauma, and these are the steps they need to take to ensure that then it doesn't, affect them much, and especially in the long term.
Yeah.
What happens during the diagnosis process? Because like we said last week, sometimes people are afraid to go back, and especially if it was like very traumatic that affected their childhood. Others would rather not, you know.
Yeah.
So they're like, man, I'm not going to see a counselor because they'll force me to go back
Yeah.
to what happened, and that is a place where I would rather not.
Yeah. So let's go back to the brain. 4 parts.
Yeah.
Your amygdala is overworked. You have your blood cells are constantly pumped with cortisol. You're constantly in that state of fear. It's going to manifest in your physical.
Yeah.
And I will say this very, very carefully because some lifestyle diseases have been attributed to some psychological conditions.
Oh, yeah.
And also your sleep is disrupted.
Yeah.
So you don't have regular sleeping patterns. Again, not during this time of COVID because we know a lot of things have changed. But you can certainly say that during a certain time in the year, I'm not able to sleep well. Because that's the other thing about trauma.
Okay.
Quote unquote anniversary, because the time the mind remembers this time this thing this thing happened.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, so during this time of the year when this certain trauma happened, I'm not able to sleep. I get constant headaches.
Yeah.
So during diagnosis, your doctor will take you through a physical.
All right.
Okay. They'll try and ascertain if you have high blood pressure, if you have diabetes and all those things. These are just diseases I'm mentioning. They'll try and ascertain the root cause, and then after that, they will refer you to a psychologist or a psychiatrist if there's a case for mental health. Now the psychiatrist will do a psychological inventory.
All right.
On your sleeping patterns, your memory recall. Are you eating well? Are you exercising well?
Yeah.
And what we do is to just pick up patterns and then try and find out the source of these patterns.
All right.
Yeah.
Seems like a long process.
It is. Because it's a sensitive issue.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to force someone who has trauma, treat them for a trauma related and there is no trauma. So we have to be very regal and say, okay, 1, 2, 3 is equals to 1, 2, 3. Have you experienced 1? Have you experienced 2? But that's the work that has to be done.
It has to.
You don't want to go to a quack and tell you, you get over it.
Yeah.
Deal with
or
it.
I'll prescribe like this and this and this, and then
Yes.
you'll be fine
Yeah.
after the same. All right, then. So there's no specific duration that diagnosis would take. Depends.
The physician has taken you through their own session, then you come to us, a psychiatrist or a psychologist will take you through just one sitting, 2 hours, filling out the forms, just trying to find out what really happened.
Okay.
Because we don't want to be presumptuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. The one who doesn't remember that they went through trauma, right? Or even the ones that are just, first of all, don't think they made the correct decision to seek help. You know, you get to a therapist, you sit down and you're like, wait, why am I here? You know? So for such, are you even able to, you know, like by the end of like an hour or two long session, you're able to come up with a diagnosis?
Yes, because there are a series of questions that you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay then. All right.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to think, okay, you know the stubborn son who are like, no, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm okay. And then you come up with your questions. They, you know, try to dodge your questions and all those things.
And we see them.
Yeah.
They're there.
Yeah.
But the fact that someone came,
Yeah.
they were not coerced or that they were forced, it's just, I would say, that defense mechanism,
Yeah.
still trying to pull them back and say, no, you're okay.
Yeah.
But in and within that person, after talking to them for 2 hours,
Yeah.
or 2 hours just the initial
Yeah.
check-in time, check-in, client taking forms. After that, they have been demystified on, there's really nothing wrong with you. It's actually what you went through. If they're willing to deal with it, you deal with it.
Yeah.
If they're not willing to deal with it, you have to be respectful and wait for them to be ready.
When they're ready.
However, most of the time, when trauma happens, there are accompanying things that are happening. These things that we talked about, toxic relationships, poor self-image, a lack of a healthy self-esteem, even intrapersonal conflict. So we'll address that if that is what if that is called the presenting problem. That's the presenting problem that's going to address it. But you'll find that as we go deeper, it's normally something that happened. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's normally a trauma.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for the suppressed, repressed, are you able to recover it? You know, during the process.
Unless you're what we call a psychoanalytic licensed therapist.
Hey, okay.
So those ones are the ones that go really deep into the unconscious.
Yeah.
To try and understand why does this person behave like this. Normally Freudian. You know this guy called... So Freud is the one who said you lay on your couch and you talk.
Yeah.
These are psychoanalytic therapists. They are specifically trained to almost fish out information in the unconscious.
Yeah.
For repressed memory, even the validity of the memories is questioned.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. So on one end, the client is saying, I actually went through this, but I cannot remember exactly. But for the virtue that they can't really remember if it happened, the validity of these memories being authentic then poses a problem.
Yeah. So
repressed memories are actually far and rare. Suppressed memories is what we see.
Yeah.
Because you know your subconscious knows, your mind remembers. And remember, trauma it's something out of the normal. So your mind knows, this is not normal. What happened to me is not normal. It's not normal.
Yeah.
And you carry it, but you suppress. You unconsciously, you learn how to, push it down. Yeah. So those ones are, of course, during therapy, they come up.
Okay.
And we are able to deal with them.
To deal with the same.
Yeah.
All right, then. So in terms of then treatment, would it be right to ask how long it takes? Because, again, people are different, going through different experiences, not going through different experiences, but managed and handled them differently. So in terms of, like, the whole process, like, how long does it take for this person to get better? Is there, like, a specific or...
Time.
Yeah. Or it's different for different people.
We talked about the sooner the trauma happens, the shorter the space you take to seek intervention after the trauma, the quicker it is to heal. Because the memories are fresh. You can recall, you can be able to place yourself here and there. You can actually see it happened to you. You did not go out there and call the trauma, so you're not at fault. And this is for children. So there's a case, very, very briefly, there's a boy who was raised with dogs. He couldn't even talk. He had a heightened sense of just the way dogs. So he had no skills in terms of motor skills. He couldn't feed himself. So, and this is a case that has been published. He was 4 years old when he was found. They did treatment therapy, everyday the therapy. He took between 0 to 8 months to actually become a child again. Of course, his emotional growth will be slanted.
Oh, yeah.
But by the time he was 8 years, he was able to talk, he was able to feed himself, things that maybe 4 or 5 year olds are able to do.
Yeah.
Now, if you take this case of this boy and trying to address the huge amount of neglect that he went and he grew up, you'd see he'd almost be like a messed up person, quote unquote. So the shorter the time after the trauma, the quicker it is to heal. But that doesn't mean that there is no hope for
There's no hope. Yeah, because we're about to
adults.
ask, okay, now what happens to the adults?
No, it just means that it will take a much longer time.
Yeah.
And the thing with trauma in adults is you're treating two things, the trauma and the effect of the trauma.
Oh, yeah.
So there's what happened and this is the effect. And these are things like, again, fear, guilt, shame, self-perception, interpersonal conflict. So you're treating that as you're treating the trauma.
So it takes a bit.
Yeah, it does take some
take
time.
a bit of time.
Yeah.
Okay, then. So in terms of still on, so now we cannot say like, 2 weeks, you're okay. If you're not okay, then you must have other. No, it's you know, specifically, you know, tailored to fit a person's need.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of you as a therapist, as a counselor, what do you ask of your patients? Because I know of so many people who say, well, I came to you, you're supposed to help me get better, but now this is taking too much time, like me, I'm done. You know, so in terms of as a therapist, a counselor, like what do you expect or what do you tell your patients when they come to, so that again, to make the process, let's say quicker, but at the same time offer results that everybody desires, either the therapist and the patient, and that is this person to get better as soon as possible so they can go on with life.
So you remember I told you the first session takes 2 hours?
Yeah.
We are taking the client information. At that point, you set goals. Of course, the goals are going to keep shifting.
Yeah.
Part of goal setting is to inform the client what therapy really is. And the truth is, therapy is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because you're confronting things that you don't want to
You'd rather not
confront.
to. Yeah.
So therapy is not easy. And I think it's important that people should know.
Yeah.
You're just not coming to talk. You're coming to confront what you have believed and realizing that what you have believed may actually not be the truth.
True.
And that's an incongruence. So therapy is not easy.
Yeah.
And in that uneasiness, we have to make the person know, I cannot give you a specific number of sessions that I will tell you either within session 8 or 9 you should
be okay.
What I can tell you is by the time we're in session 4 or 5, you will not be where you are.
Oh, yeah.
Because
before you came.
Because there's a progress, there's something you're doing about it.
Yeah.
And that's where the goals come into play. So we'll say, okay, I want to do 1, 2, 3. So in every session, we're like, so how close are we to your goal? What are your perception of your goal? Do you think you've achieved it? Do we need to set up a new goal?
Yeah.
All this is addressed in the first session.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where we address and say, we cannot give you a specific time because then I will be lying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of a licensed therapist. They will tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And because the relationship or the thing that fuels a therapist's relationship with the client is trust. They have to be able to trust me to help them.
Yeah.
But the number one thing I just ask is that they just be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
It's okay.
To be vulnerable.
Yes, it's
because I
okay.
think most of the time we tend to act strong and not confront again, you know, our fears and our experiences. So we're strong. Like, did you go through this? No. Do you feel this? No. Do you?
Yeah.
And yet inside there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
All right, and patience as well, because like you said, we
and
cannot just do this in like a week or two.
No. And let me just say, and I'll say this in a sensitive way.
Okay.
You will go to someone who hasn't done therapy, trained therapist, and you'll go to a trained therapist and you'll see the difference.
Notice the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. And I'm happy you say that because again, so many times we're just told, no, just go for therapy, go see a counselor, go see a therapist, you know, and it sounds so easy.
Yeah.
But I like what you say. It's not easy.
It's not.
It is not easy. Takes a lot of work. Okay then. So in terms of expecting this person to get better, and hopefully they get better.
They do.
And helping them understand their triggers and know what to do when they are triggered. You know, what happens to that? Because again, because like you said, this someone might be okay, but then again, when there's a trigger, it ruins almost everything, you know, and even the treatment that they've gone through. So in terms of then understanding the triggers and know how to work around, because I mean, it's life, you know, we'll experience these things, you know, probably over and over again, if not like once after it happened before. So then how do you handle yourself and how do you handle the triggers?
Within them.
Within them, yes.
So first is identifying what the triggers are.
Yeah.
Second is articulating how your response will be when you're triggered.
Okay.
So doing it beforehand.
All right.
So I will ask the client a question like, how do you perceive you would react in this situation? What you've done is to set a pathway into the mind. You're giving it an assumption that I could actually be in this environment, but you're also giving it a head start on how you're going to react. So just as I mentioned in the previous session, we do certain therapeutic approaches.
Okay.
Amongst the ones that are highly effective for trauma are to exposure and stress inoculation techniques. So exposure is where we recreate a healthy environment, a safe environment for you to go through the trauma again, to relieve the trauma again.
All right.
But you're not reliving it per se.
Yeah.
You just want to see yourself, how you reacted, and also just come into acknowledgement of, okay, I really did go through this, but I came out of it as well.
Okay.
Again, trained therapist.
Yeah.
Trained, because you could expose someone and they could get an anxiety attack and it could be catastrophic.
Yeah.
Then the other technique is the stress inoculation technique, where we teach you breathing techniques, cognitive thought process techniques. I know maybe someone just thinking breathing.
Yeah. Like, what? Okay.
But remember,
yes.
the brainstem is responsible for heightened when you're in a threatful environment. So ideally, we're just saying, okay, you can control this. You don't have to let your entire limbic system take precedence.
Yeah.
You actually have control over this.
Yeah.
And the first thing is, if you breathe in and out, you actually become calm. You're able to think. You're able to reason. Which part of the brain are you activating? The prefrontal cortex. And your amygdala is able to also calm down and say, okay, this is really fear, but we don't have to, not the hippocampus, we don't have to react how we reacted or how we react normally. We can react in a way that we have
awareness
learned.
now.
Yes,
we know what's going on and what we can, how best we can react to this thing. All right then. So, and the people around them, because again, and especially in relationships, because like you said, one, this person is not able to either sustain or this person again will, I mean, it will have an impact, and especially to their partner, and if the children are involved, maybe worse. So in terms of now a partner who is okay, all right, how then do we support this person who, again, is struggling with the same? Because if you see this person behaving this way, like almost all the time, you're like, funny, what's wrong with this person, you know? And fuels chaos and fights and violence in some cases, divorce, separate, you know? Like, there's a lot because we do not know how to handle this person. And I'm pretty sure you've even had people come to you and say, me, I don't know how to handle my partner anymore because I have tried, but it's not working anymore. Yeah, so in terms of then support this person, because it's not like they're pretending or they want to inflict pain on you and even the family, just that they're sick and they need help. So in terms of then, how do we support them? And even the parents or just anybody around them, what are some of the things that probably you might advise in terms of offering support?
So this is where it gets a little bit complicated because I'll say this very carefully. You cannot be in a toxic relationship with a healthy person.
Oh, so both of you, wow, okay. All right, okay.
Got
I
it?
somewhat get it, yes.
Yes, because a healthy person will identify toxicity and will not put up with it.
Okay.
Because it's also healthy to walk away.
Oh yeah. But what about that part of I love you and I love the whole
Part of
of
you.
you.
And it's possible and it's beautiful.
yeah, or even the mistake that most people do almost all the time is I get into a relationship with you hoping that you will, like I will change you, you know?
Red flag.
Yes. And then it doesn't work out that way.
It doesn't work out,
It
but we are
doesn't.
there
Yeah.
anyway. So first is, before you even seek to help that person,
Yeah.
how are you as a person?
Okay.
So let's first say, okay, how am I as a person?
Uh-huh.
And if at all, how am I causing this environment
Yeah.
to be XYZ for my partner?
All right.
So it starts with you.
Okay. So does that mean that then we don't get into relationships with these persons? Because now who are they going to marry or who are they going to get married to? In the sense that, and especially the ones, remember the ones we said they don't know that they have a problem. They do not know they're sick. Them, they just think it's normal and it's okay. And let's say I am a healthy person and I can tell that there's a problem here and this person needs help, and I love them. But now I need to love them, but also help them find help so that we can have like a healthy, lasting relationship. It becomes a little bit sensitive because now you point out a problem, they're like, no, you have the problem, you know, and then brings about fight and all those things.
I think it just, again, it's a very, very sensitive thing to tell someone, hey, you have a problem.
Yeah.
But if at all we are saying that this is a person whom you love, my direction would be, don't point it out.
Okay.
Sit down and have a discussion with the person.
All right.
In a very loving and caring way. And say, I am concerned for 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
If it's the husband telling the wife, say, I am concerned that your outbursts are affecting the children in this 1, 2, 3. How would you want me to help?
Yeah. Okay.
And the wife also to the husband, I am concerned that either your late nights are affecting the children because they don't see you anymore. How can we work at this together?
Yeah.
It should not be you.
You
it
are
should
the problem,
be,
you're this, you're that, you did this. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's both of us.
Yeah.
And again, just as we mentioned the other time, seek help for both of you.
Yeah.
And it's not help because you're weak. It's help because you want to grow.
Yeah. Okay.
So don't isolate the person and say,
Yeah.
hizo ni shida zako, deal with them, because that's what we do.
Oh, yeah.
And even you, Winnie, if I tell you have a problem, the first thing you're going to do is to become defensive and say, I'm not the problem, it's you.
You're the problem, yeah.
But if someone came and told you, hey, I think I can help you in this way or that way, you would even feel more cared, and you would actually say, okay, maybe it's actually true.
Yeah.
Maybe I do need help. Yeah.
Okay, then. So, and suppose the effects, all right, led to, cases of violence and all those things. And this person is like now, and as we finish, all right, how then do I trust this person again, that's when they come back to our lives, and especially when the children are involved, that we will be safe, and probably the cycle that was there before would not happen again, you know, in terms of then establishing trust and getting to that realization that this person probably has sought help and they are okay, and we can trust them that we'll be okay. From here, they don't, because so many families have broken. And when you tell them, fine, this person is seeking help, and then can you guys go back together? They're like, no, me, I do not trust this person anymore. And
that in there is the separation that you're talking about.
Yeah.
When that person is being sought or is seeking help, is it possible that the entire family, even if they're not together, even if that they're separate, is it possible that the entire family can be present during therapy?
All right.
And that trust will be rebuilt over time. They'll be able to see, okay, we've gone for 5, 6 sessions. The person has actually acknowledged what they are going. There is evidence on behavior change. It's a process. It's not immediate.
Oh, yeah.
But if you sit at home and wait for your partner to seek help and then come back, you're still going to see them from the point of view where they hurt you. So again, it's a we approach rather than a you approach. Yeah.
Okay, I like that, because I think that is the thing that we do a lot.
Yeah.
You go seek help, and then when you're done, you will come back. And I'm pretty sure you've had so many people say the same. Okay, and we have to end the show on that note. Can we have 30 more minutes? But we have to end it here. But thank you, really, because now I think from today's discussion now, I somewhat can see, you know what, maybe some people behave this way, it's because, you know, they've gone through this. And it's interesting because we see them probably suffering with the same, but we think, oh, they're just being weirdos, or they do not want to be with people, or they do not want. So we tend to blame instead of trying to help them find help. So great insights today.
Yes.
As always.
Thank
Thank you very much for coming.
I just want to say, let's be kind to one another.
Please,
let's be kind, let's be gentle to one another, and let's just seek to ensure that we first are okay before we point fingers to someone else.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Practice empathy, really, because you do not know this person's story. All right, and we have to end it here today. Thank you very much for staying with us until the end of the show. Now, I believe you have a better understanding and insight as far as just trauma is concerned and how this can impact a person's life, even into adulthood. So how about we put a pause there for today? We'll see you on another episode of My Doctor. But until then, stay safe, God bless, and remember to practice empathy. Goodbye for now.